that
Okay. This is one of the smaller audiences I've given a talk to, but
yeah,
I hope you
it's
got
very
something out of it.
that's for sure. So lots of opportunity for a conversation or discussion. It's um I mean the overview that you gave and the s- sort of distinguishing the noise and the signal and getting at the still small voice, that's very rare of that attitude in contemporary sort of culture and science and the way it's taught in the universities. So I think that's a very valuable contribution to actually step back, and ask those questions and bring the eye of faith to bear on all of this.
Yeah,
Good. You
sorry,
go
go
ahead.
ahead.
You go ahead.
Well, I was
Yeah.
going to say, yeah, I mean, I think, I mean, in science, we see patterns that sort of make sense, like in everyday life, but there's also a lot of noise. And science, especially precision science, and here I talked about precision cosmology, is
Right.
about distinguishing signal from noise. And I think there is a theological parallel there expressed in the story of Elijah. There's all this noise of earthquake and fire and all this stuff. God is there, but it's hard to discern. But Elijah's patience is rewarded by the still small voice. And I think in everyday life, we have this intuition,
Right.
feeling of God, I would say.
Yeah.
And but there's a lot of theological noise in the suffering, in the confusion, in conflicting morals, perhaps. And I think our job as Christians, individually and as communities of faith, is to try and listen to the still small signal voice within this noise. And I think if you want to get something out of this whole thing, I'm
Right.
hoping that that parallel can be drawn there.
Right.
And it now I think those that are non-theists give up. They're saying there's no signal in the noise. There's no still small voice to listen to theologically. But I don't agree with that. I mean, if I gave up in science, we wouldn't learn the science we have. And I do think we discern or can discern signal through noise theologically
Yeah.
in a variety of ways, both vertically and horizontally. The social activists like to find it this way. The
Yeah.
maybe the more conservative find it that way. I think we need the whole thing. But anyway,
Yeah.
that's part of what I'm trying to get across here. Though I know I put in a lot of
It,
science here,
well,
maybe a bit too much at times,
well,
but
it's it's all important and it's
I want you to
amazing.
know I'm not making this stuff up.
No, and it's amazing that the human mind can conceive of
Yeah,
this. I mean, that's
yeah.
remarkable in of itself. Comments, others, I'll throw it open here. This is
I,
lots
uh,
to.
I appreciated this talk a great deal, and I think many more people could benefit from it. But particularly since, the last time I took a university physics course was in 1970, and that's a few years ago now. Um, and I think I find it very helpful to be thinking in terms of where um, where some of the data that you were talking about leads to an understanding of where the theology touches the cosmology in your particular case. And I've had very little contact with cosmology, so I'll just throw out one little question I had. Um, I have been told, and I don't know whether this is true or not, that Roger Penrose has at one point suggested that eventually the universe will collapse on itself. Matter will disappear, and we've just got pure energy, after which there may be another Big Bang and a new universe emerges from the grave of our universe, and this may have happened in the past as well. Is that taken at all seriously by cosmologists? And if so, would we have any evidence that suggested that that's even a possibility?
So the answer to the first part is taken seriously if the measure of taken seriousness is given by the amount of people working on the idea. The answer is no. Not many people are
Okay.
working on this. I do want to make a bit of a correction. It was, let me, I showed you these possibilities of deceleration, coasting, and acceleration. Observation tells us we're accelerating unless something is wildly wrong with all observations, okay? Which now and then somebody suggests that maybe there's a some very strange selection bias of where we are in the universe. But let's suppose acceleration is right. So the reason why, so originally people thought we were going to decelerate because gravity is always attractive. So you got this bang, but eventually the attraction of everything in the bang will pull itself back together. But at the end of the 90s, it was showing that instead of this, we're going to get that, just accelerating expansion. In other words, the expansion is going faster and faster and faster every day. That's why dark energy was invoked. It's basically a kind of energy that's gravitationally repulsive and pushes everything apart. So now to get to Penrose's idea. He is actually saying you had it all right, except instead of deceleration, it's acceleration. So the idea is as the universe accelerates, it gets more and more dilute. In local galaxies, black holes will ultimately absorb everything, and then they will radiate away to energy. So you got the energy part is right. So the idea is once everything is radiated away with energy, there is no ability to distinguish length. In other words, you can't tell this distance apart from this one, apart from that one. You need heavy objects to do that. So Penrose's idea is that when that happens, something will make the entire universe rescale down to a point, and the Big Bang will happen again. And again, and again, and again, and again. That's the idea. Of course, the mechanism for how that will work, I don't know, right? This is where Penrose is a bit weak. He has these big ideas, but he often doesn't follow through. However, to his credit, he is saying that if this kind of thing happens, he has suggested a couple of possibilities of how our universe would have contained some remnant of that kind of thing. Okay. So that I hope that fleshes it out. But a lot, I mean, I think the reason why a lot of people haven't worked on it is how this vast rescaling happens is not clear. It's a total injection. There is a bias amongst a number of physicists to try and get away from a Big Bang insofar as they want us either there's many Big Bangs or the banging keeps happening again and again. And I think the reason for that is a prejudice in favor, or maybe I should say against, the notion of something out of nothing. They feel there needs to be an eternality to the universe in some sense. And my guess, I'd like them to come on the table. My guess is, I think they would say if you give up on that, then you're giving up on science in a particular way because you'll have some kind of inexplicable non-existence to existence transition. Now, as a believer, it doesn't bother me. I mean, I think we now know enough like I don't want to be naive and say, oh, well, we just accept it because God did it. But I think we are at a stage where we know enough that this old idea of non-existence to existence is actually scientifically respectable. It has to be entertained seriously. Okay. If I look like I'm looking
Yeah.
in a different direction because I got two screens here and you guys are on one, but my camera's on the other.
Okay.
See if I lift it up, it
That's
gets
good.
better.
That's good.
So I think that's a possibility. I've said this is the puzzle of existence is expressed as 0, 1, or infinity,
Right.
right? 0 is nothing exists. And that is one possibility logically, but observationally, we're pretty sure it's not true. 1 is that something exists, by which I mean our particular universe with all of its particular features. And we know things could have happened otherwise. The earth could have been a bit heavier. Your parents might have never met and you might not have been born. I might have decided not to give this talk. Somebody else might have decided to come. That would have been nice. This kind of thing. So we have the particularity of our existence. But the other possibility is that these other imagined existences actually happen somehow, somewhere, somewhen. And that's the everything hypothesis. And I've got other talks, and I've argued
Right.
against number 3.
Right.
0, we can be sure observationally isn't there. We are not sure observationally there is more than one type of existence. But the trouble is, if there is, you open up a big can of worms that undermines both the scientific method and a theological understanding. But here is where debate occurs. But those that don't like the particularity of our universe ultimately have to go into the manyverse, the multiverse,
Yeah.
either by repeated big bangs or by many big bangs all over the place or all this stuff. That's probably a much longer answer to your
Well,
question.
But it's very interesting because I can see that the everything approach is a way of getting to the particularity of our universe
Yeah.
without the need of a creator. If there's enough of everything, many different universes, then you can say, well, randomly, it's possible that our universe maybe was the only one that's going to work well for life, but whatever it is, our universe could randomly have come up. There could be other options that exist, whereas the one solution is very hard to explain without some kind of a creator.
Well, I think that's right.
Tuning the
Yeah.
numbers, right?
Yeah.
So
I
it could
think
just be their refusal to accept a creator means that
you got to go elsewhere. I mean,
you have to go elsewhere,
that's right.
yeah.
and the everything option is where they end up.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I would also let me say a couple of things to that. One, I think it does say to a creator, but the pushback would be, oh, that makes you lazy. God did it, you don't do science. But I don't agree with that. I
Yeah.
think if you accept that, what you are doing in science is studying the particularity and studying the nature of the particularity and its origin will tell us more about that creator, if only indirectly. So I don't agree with the assertion
Right.
that because the particularity points to a creator, that means the end of science. Absolutely not.
Right.
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
But this is often the hidden assumption.
Right.
And now, so that's one. Another thing about it is this desire to push the Copernican principle everywhere as far as you can. Now, it's been a very fruitful principle, but it works in space, Pretty much. There's this anisotropy of the universe I mentioned, which is a problem there. But applying it to cosmology, well, first of all, to astronomy with the solar system and cosmology, it has been fruitful, and it is fruitful in other areas of science. But it doesn't work when you apply it to time. The universe certainly is not the same today as it was 10 billion years ago and 13. There has been a development. So you could say it looks the same in all directions, but it doesn't look the same at all times.
Mhm.
And I think that's a very significant observational fact that suggests there are quite likely limits to the applicability of this principle.
Right.
Unless you go for the multiverse. The multiverse allows you to say Copernicus works over time because it's repeated all the time and so on and so forth. Of course, there's no way of
There's no
that
evidence.
anybody
Yeah.
knows of coupling that to observation in the slightest. So I do think one is motivated by Copernican ideology to some degree.
Mhm.
Anyway,
Well, thank you very much, Robert, for your talk. You mentioned that we see you looking up. You may have seen me looking to the side like this.
yeah, it's the trouble with two computers. You need the monitor to have a camera, then you'll look right
Yeah,
at it.
and follow you.
Well, in
Here,
fact,
I'm
that's what
looking
I've
at.
been
See, when I
doing.
look at you, I can't see you. But anyway, sorry, Herman, go ahead.
Yeah, no problem. But I thought maybe you guys noticed I was looking off to the side. That's because I'm not looking at the screen, which is very small on my
No.
laptop. I've been looking
Right.
at a monitor off to the side, which
Yeah.
which gives me a screen about 4 times as big.
That's
And if
easier on
you
the eye.
thought I was nodding off at times, I solved that with this.
Okay, you want to share some there? Yeah.
If I could pass it over.
Yep.
But I really appreciated your talk, Robert, talking about both the cosmology and the scriptural understanding in the midst of all that, because that's been I've been a Christian high school science teacher and principal and consultant and so on for all of my career.
Yeah.
And that's always been a strong emphasis of mine, holding those together. And I used to teach that in biology. I'd quote the kids from, Gospel of John 1. In the beginning was the Logos.
Mhm.
What does biology mean? Bios, life. Logos, word, study, etc. And then I'd quote them that passage.
Yeah.
And I think that's really essential for kids nowadays as well. They have to understand that the two belong together.
Yeah, I think I would agree. And I mean, I do think we're, sadly, it's easy to become polarized in thinking. And one thing I like to say is that conservatives don't like questions and liberals don't like answers. And I think we need both.
Yeah.
I think the challenge is it's the new wine for new wineskins. How do you remain open to new ideas theologically whilst
Yeah.
maintaining integrity of belief? I mean, that's a problem in science. There is a mechanism for doing it, but you've all heard of the Kuhnian paradigm, right? That
Right.
we work within a certain paradigmatic intellectual structure to make progress. But it may be that the structure is blinding us to other ideas. And likewise, within Christian faith, we need to work within a particular paradigmatic understanding to worship and to make progress. But on the other hand, we need to keep in mind that we've fallen short of the glory of God. We might be missing something. My own view of this is actually to go away from that to the Lakatos version of the research program, that there is there's a core that's very hard to falsify, but the periphery is more easily modified. And the farther away an idea is from the core, the more fungible it is in both science and faith. And the challenge, to get back to theology, how do you distinguish periphery from core? And that should always be an ongoing discussion. It's why I'm in favor of, I like to put liberal and conservative Christians together. I think we need to talk to each other. So I also think, sadly, we need this in politics, that there's a great poll. Ironically, in the most educated society in history, instead of consensus, we get polarization.
And that's amplified by the technology now in many respects.
I mean, you get it crazy things on the political right, and you get crazy things on the political left.
Yeah, serious problem.
You know, I mean, I would say it used to be those were the fringe groups, but they now seem to dominate. And
that's a big discussion for sure.
That's another whole discussion.
Yeah,
so
we'll
get back,
that.
but I think in faith it's our job to build these bridges there. I think in science as well to do it, and between faith and science to do that. But we shouldn't. I think the particularity of our universe is telling us something.
Absolutely.
And I think our observations will teach us more about the particularity and enrich it. Once I was asked about this, I made similar comments at a talk in BC. Was it Simon Fraser? I think it was. Anyway, I gave this, and someone said, well, you know, what if string theory comes along and provides this whole complete description? What's that going to do to your faith? And I said, I think this is true, we now know enough that even if some theory comes along that explains it, quote, I think that'll make God look better, not worse. It won't eliminate God. Rather, I think it will enhance what we understand about the mind of the universe. That is my guess.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't eliminate it. And I think that's sort of the reverse of the God of gaps. Yeah. It doesn't mean there are no theological challenges. I mean, I think physics makes God look good, biology makes God look bad. But
that's another talk as well.
But I do think I think there are, even with physics, there are some things that you know, one should not be so naive. Oh, God always did it. God can never. Our views can never be challenged. They can be challenged, but being challenged isn't the same as being knocked out.
No, and I mean, persons like Carl Sagan and his cosmos was sort of a very facile in some sense, naturalistic view. I mean, where there just wasn't room to even think about God. Stanley Yaki talked about science in some as theorizing open to the existence of a creator. That is, that it's rather than closing down. And William Whewell, who coined the term scientist, and there's actually a Whewell Center at Cambridge now, in his work in the 1860s, said all cosmology has a side turned towards theology. That is, if we engage in thinking in terms of cosmology, we come to that edge, as you say, or the limit. And I guess question too, the Bible talks about all things visible and invisible within the Christian realm, and that the creation is something that will wear out and be. But the transcendence of God being something so utterly awesome beyond what we can even imagine, but yet having come down in the person of Christ makes it accessible. And I guess too, 2,000 years, you can go back even further, of Christian history and theology, the fact, this is an empirical fact. There are this many people over the centuries that have been indeed engaged with and transformed positively by belief in God. And the core elements of our confessions seem to lay a foundation for doing science and being open to, but that the universe ultimately is not random, is not, it's personal. There's a personal being that has given rise to this, and we are able to engage in a relationship with that being. And, I mean, it seems many of the great scientists had that facility to move from their theories to the notion of the mind of God or these.
Well, in the good old days, less so now, though it depends on how you
I
do
think,
the
yeah,
surveys. There's actually a survey on the worldwide beliefs
yeah,
of scientists that
yeah,
actually there are some countries. So in a lot of countries, statistically, uh, if you're a scientist, you're less likely to believe in God. But there are
yeah,
some countries where you're more likely to
yeah,
believe in
right,
God. And
yeah,
there's this whole, it was published in Nature. It's the first, most of the studies used to focus on the US,
right.
but this one did it worldwide. It's a very
Be interesting.
interesting study. I've
Yeah,
got
if
it
you got that
somewhere, but I mean,
reference,
we're probably close to out of time, right? It's
yeah,
3:30. So,
yeah. Look, well, I really, yeah, appreciate it very much. We'll, few of us see each other tomorrow. I think Herman, you're
okay. Well,
coming
yeah, I'm hoping to get there.
Mm.
I'm
if
expecting
you
to.
do.
So I'll see you
But I
tomorrow.
appreciate it. And yeah, I've got the references, and if there's any other material I will share. I've got everybody's email. That's not a problem. And this is recorded, so we can share this discussion with others as well.
Okay.
And hopefully, in the future, we'll get you down in person to speak. I
Sure.
think it'd be quite a large crowd at
Yep.
McMaster. Well, thank you,
Well, if you
Robert.
think it needs a wider audience, I'm happy to repeat this talk or a slight
Yeah,
update if you think you can get somebody
for
else
sure. Well, I
interested.
think so. And this is a good
All right.
recording. So thank you for your time. Thank you,
Take care,
everybody.
guys.
And we
Yeah.
will, yeah, be in touch.
Okay.
Bye
Bye-bye.
bye.
Hasta luego.
Jo-
There we go. Hey,
John, um, uh, when you get this up on a line,
yeah,
this recording, let me know. There's a few
yeah,
people I know that need to hear this.
yeah. No, I know. I think it's, it's quite,
Uh, the comment that physics glorifies God and biology does the reverse.
that's the
There's a
whole,
couple of biologists that need to
yeah.
hear this
Well,
this
that's
talk.
for sure. The signature of the cell and Dembski, the whole people at the Discovery Center have certainly engaged. I mean, I think the reality is when you get to the realm of even the origins of nature of life, it's beyond chance, beyond
Yeah.
there's so many specificities there that you really you're encountering something awesome. And the more I think you're comfortable with the idea of God and even have a personal relationship, the more you're open to really engage with the evidence and not have to force it in any one direction. It's but I think the incredible, complexity and intricacy of all these aspects at the cosmic level and then certainly the origin of life is such that saying this just happened is beyond any
Mhm.
probability. Like the element of intelligent design it is stamped, it seems, everywhere the more we get into the intricacies of our universe. So